The sheriff of Cedarview was not someone you could easily spot on the streets. When two officers stopped Kendra Hayes' car, they had no reason to suspect that the woman behind the wheel was anything but an ordinary driver. They thought they were facing a regular citizen, and their job was to issue a ticket. But little did they know the woman in front of them would soon be the one leading them in the days to come. Kendra Hayes, a woman of color, had risen from numerous challenges to become the new sheriff of Cedarview. And that very day she would prove that power and change don't just come from a title, but from the strength of making difficult decisions. Kendra remained calm, her eyes never leaving the two officers as they approached the car. She wasn't in a hurry, nor did she show any signs of nervousness. Yet the tension in the air was undeniable. The sheriff, an older man, walked toward her with a confident stride, while the younger officer trailed closely behind, his gaze filled with suspicion. "With driver's license and vehicle registration," the sheriff demanded, his voice steady, as if he were all too familiar with stopping drivers who appeared suspicious. Kendra calmly opened the glove compartment, retrieved the documents, and handed them to him. "Thank you," the sheriff said, but his eyes never left Kendra. He began inspecting the papers, but the suspicion in him hadn't yet faded. The younger officer, clearly unsatisfied with Kendra's responses, stepped closer and asked, "Where are you headed at this hour?" Kendra remained silent for a moment, then slowly replied, "I'm on my way to work." The young officer was not pleased with the answer. "And what exactly is your job?" he pressed, his face tinged with mockery. Kendra could feel the tension in the air rise. She could easily tell them she was the sheriff, but she knew that would only escalate the situation unnecessarily. Instead, she offered a faint smile, shrugged, and responded, "You'll find out soon enough." The conversation seemed poised to continue in tension, but then an unexpected moment arrived. Kendra took a deep breath, regained her composure, and spoke. "I am Sheriff Kendra Hayes," and her words were soft, yet carried an undeniable authority, as if they had suddenly sliced through the tension in the air. The sheriff stood frozen, his eyes wide, confusion clearly etched on his face. Both officers could hardly believe what they had just heard. They had heard rumors of change within the police force, but never did they imagine that the woman they had just pulled over would be the one to lead them. I'm the sheriff?" the older officer stammered, his voice wavering. Kendra locked eyes with them, her tone unwavering. "Yes, you are. And I'd like to know why I was stopped here, and why you're asking me questions like that." Silence engulfed the scene. The young officer could find no words, but the shift in his expression was unmistakable. He realized that this confrontation was no longer just about a routine traffic stop. Both officers understood that Kendra's authority and resolve had shifted everything with just one sentence. Kendra stood firm, her gaze fixed on the two officers, who now felt the weight of every word she spoke. After revealing her position as the sheriff, the air around them seemed to still, yet the tension remained palpable. Kendra knew that she wasn't just facing the two officers before her, but was also standing as a symbol for all those who had endured unjust discrimination for decades. "You, the ones in this force, are the reason many no longer trust this system," Kendra began, her voice steady. "You acted on false assumptions simply because of my skin color. Do you realize how damaging it is to stop me simply because I'm a black woman?" The sheriff was at a loss for words. He opened his mouth but couldn't find anything to say. The young officer seemed flustered, his eyes filled with worry. In that moment, Kendra made them feel not only her authority, but also forced them to confront actions they had long avoided. "This isn't just about me. This is about everyone who has been stopped, treated differently, just because they don't fit the image you've painted in your heads," Kendra continued. She didn't give them the chance to interrupt, and with a sharp look, she silenced them all. The sheriff swallowed hard, too intimidated to meet her gaze. The young officer lowered his head, unable to find an acceptable explanation. Both realized they had made a serious mistake, and there was no turning back. Kendra had nothing more to say. She looked them in the eye as though they were part of the system she was about to reform. From now on, you will report directly to me. Every decision you make will be closely monitored, and I hope you will understand better what justice and responsibility truly mean. Kendra turned back to her car, but not because she wanted to end the conversation. She walked with purpose, each step she took a clear message that things were about to change from that day forward. The sheriff of Cedarview had not only stood up for herself, but for those who had no voice. This battle wouldn't be easy, and she knew many challenges still lay ahead. But Kendra was ready to face whatever came her way. As for the two officers, they stood there, silent, no more words to say. For the first time in their careers, they realized that true power didn't come from control, but from responsibility and justice. What they had just experienced wouldn't be just a story. It would be a lesson they would carry with them for the rest of their lives. Kendra knew that Cedarview wouldn't change overnight, but she was the one who would lead that change. She had fought for justice and would continue fighting so that no one would have to live in the injustice they had known before. If you believe that change is necessary, share this story with those around you. Together, we can make a difference. Don't forget to like and subscribe to follow the journey of change for people like Kendra.